right. Hello, students. We're going to talk today about ethical decision making. So, this is important in life in general, but as one of the objectives in the class, we are supposed to discuss how to make ethical decisions and what goes into that. So, I am not a philosophy professor, and I do not pretend to be, but I think there are some key things to understand when you're making decisions. And so we're going to go into just a little bit of ethical decision making frameworks here. This will not be on the test. You do not have to know this perfectly. My main goal here is for you to kind of just start to think about why you make the choices you do. Okay. So I'm going to go to a typical thing that might happen for a typical college student, or really anyone, and that is deciding what you're going to do for the day. So we all have lots of things on our mind and lots of things we're trying to get done, and we're going to discuss how do we decide what we're going to do. So I'm going to take this pretend student and say that she had the option of either going to visit a relative and bring her a treat, or studying and getting something done for school. Okay, so in order to make that decision, she could think through a couple of different frameworks. Those are called ethical decision making frameworks. So there's 5 main ones. There's virtue ethics, deontology, utilitarianism, right-based ethics, and care-based ethics. Okay. So virtue ethics would be what is moral, or what's the right choice to make here is what is going to make us the best person we could be. Okay, so that's a great way to think through your decision. What is going to make me the best person I want to be? The tricky thing about that, and you'll find that there are tricky things about all of them, is that is going to be based on your definition of what is best. If your definition of what is best is, I'm going to just move myself. Oh, just kidding. I'm going to see where I was. If your definition of what is best is I'm going to be have a happy family and be successful that way, then that will be different than my definition of being the best I can be as a successful, business person, right? So that will determine what choice you're going to make. Obviously, if you wanted to be a really good family member, then you would go visit the relative. But if you wanted to be more successful in your career or business, then you would study instead, right? Okay, the next one is deontology. So this is what is moral is what follows from absolute moral duties, okay? So that could be, in our situation, what we're going to do for the day. You could say, well, this person has a moral duty to visit her family and make sure that they feel loved. You could also make the argument that this person has a moral duty to better themselves, right? So it's going to come from what you think a moral duty is, and that's going to be based on where you got your idea of moral duties. And those could come from multiple variety of places, but obviously our government, whatever government that you grew up in, is going to change that or influence that, what you think. Your religion might also influence it, your family, your perception of all of those things is going to influence that. So if you grew up in a certain religion but you don't really support it, or you saw things that were concerning about it, then that might actually make you make a different choice than what your religion supported. And your culture will have things, and your government is going to have some certain things that they prioritized over others, and you may agree or disagree, and that's going to influence it, right? So it just all comes down to what we think our moral duties are and how we feel about them. All right, the next one, I think I got off. All right, here we go. Utilitarianism. So that is what is morally right is what generates the best outcome for the largest number of people. That sounds great, doesn't it? Just like whatever makes the most people happy. So maybe in our day, then we would say, okay, well, obviously bringing a treat to her relative made her and her relative happy. So that's going to win out, right? I would say, though, that doing your homework makes you and your teacher happy. So maybe not. The other thing that gets tricky about, though, is that hopefully we've come to realize in the last couple of years or decades that those people we're leaving out who aren't getting the most benefit from this, that's an issue. We want to make sure that everybody has access to, what is good or rights or basic, needs, right? So maybe that's not the best way to choose either, right? Or maybe just not in every case. Okay, and then we have right-based ethics, which is what is moral is that which is in accord with everyone's rights. This one could get a little tricky because whose rights are we talking about in this situation? Are we talking about the right of the relative? Does the relative have a right to be visited by their other relative, the student? Or are we talking about the student's right? Does the student have a right to feel like I can get things done and not feel this pressure of having to, I don't know if it's a pressure to bring a treat to a relative, but, just whose right are we talking about? And that gets into who gives us our rights, right? This is something that's definitely come out in the last couple of months as we've talked about Roe v. Wade and that getting overturned and the court kind of putting that back in everybody's playing field. Who tells us what our rights are, and how do we perceive that what those are, right? So how do we challenge the people who tell us what our rights are? Do we agree with them, right? Last one. Is this the last one? Care-based ethics. Yes, this is. So what is moral is that which promotes healthy relationships and the well-being of individuals and their interdependence. So, okay, this one, I'm feeling pretty good. She should have gone and seen the relative, right? But I think we have to think about at what cost, right? So these people are having fun. They're at some sort of party here. They're having a picnic. That's great. There's lots of well-being going around here, lots of interdependence, good relationships happening, right? But if we were always doing this, then, we would run into some problems. Maybe we wouldn't have money to buy food, or maybe we wouldn't, actually progress in our life. And those kind of times when we get together with friends might feel a little hollow because we just feel like we're not doing what we should be, or that we're just not measuring up, right? So that might not always be a good choice either. So what is better? I don't know. I don't know. It's really kind of up to you. What are the things that you prioritize, right? And where do you get those priorities? Where do you get your value system and your beliefs? I don't think there is a right answer in this, as there is not a right answer in a lot of things, right? But I think it helps to think about what matters most to you. And what matters to you, even in these simple kind of what should I do today, come from all of the experiences you have, your culture, your preferences, even your personality, the experiences you've had in your life. They all kind of are this iceberg kind of underneath the surface, influencing what we do and why. So I think the thing that I learned from philosophy is that there's always going to be a challenge, right? We've talked about this here. There's going to be a challenge to what is the right thing to do. But I think ethical decision making for you needs to come back down to what do you value the most? What are you going to be the proudest of at the end of your life, right? What are those choices that are going to lead to that? So kind of a lot to talk about on a Thursday afternoon or whatever it is. But that's what we're talking about, is why we make the decisions we do, and what to us are the right decisions to make. All right. So this is what you're going to take into consideration when you write your first paper. When you consider, just a mundane decision. What did I do with my Saturday? Or a bigger one. What job did I apply for? What school did I go to? Or something like that, right? What are the priorities and values? What is the framework you use to make that decision? And just some reflection, right? No right or wrong answer, just is what it is. All right.